Okay, so it's Saturday morning, and I've been doing a lot of thinking, and oh, I don't fit in the camera's fans. It doesn't matter. Video quality isn't my priority for right now. I've been playing with the idea of fear, by which I mean I've been encountering it over and over again, and a lot of the terminology that we use for fear, if you think about it, oh, you got to conquer your fear, you've got to beat your fear into submission, you have to go past your fear, etc. If you notice, a lot of the terminology we use with fear is warfare related, right? You've got to beat it into submission. You've got to get rid of it. You've got to do all these negative things to it. It's all around negativity. And I'm starting to think that we've got it wrong. Kind of like Pavlov's dogs. I'm wondering if we've taken what's actually a good emotion and a good response, a positive response, and we've kind of demonized it. And we've been doing it for goodness knows how long. As a lot of you know, I can't dance. Or that's how it used to be, right? My definition of myself was I can't dance. Because I was afraid to. I was afraid what other people would think of me. All of these other fears coming into my life and keeping me from doing things. Fears kept me from doing stuff my entire life. And in February, I said, no more. And I started dancing. And I keep going back to dance if you've seen other videos or my other content because it's such a huge change in my life. This whole afternoon and some of tomorrow is literally, I'm going to be doing dance stuff all day. And so I just wanted to get out these ideas because they kind of blew my mind. And, hi, I see that there's someone watching, but I'm not wearing my glasses or my contacts, so I just see a little green box at the bottom of the screen, because I'm smart. But a couple ideas here that I've been shifting my paradigm with fear. What if, paradigm shift number one, what if fear is not a negative thing? We always think, well, of course it's not negative. Fear is what keeps us from being eaten by jungle cats and keeps us from doing stupid things like jumping out of airplanes or over balconies when you're watching the theater and you're like, I wonder if I could jump down there. Fear says, don't do it, idiot. Which, yeah, that's kind of a thing, right? That's also common sense. But what if it's not actually a negative thing? Like, what if we took the negativity out of it and we said, well, fear is definitely an emotion. It's definitely like an energy, right? Because when you feel fear, you're like, whoa, fight or flight time. But what if you could harness that fear? And what if that fear didn't need to be harnessed in a beat it into submission kind of way? What if it was just there for you to use? So that was the first thought that I had. Is like, well, what do I feel when I feel fear, right? Like I started stepping back and looking at it and started asking myself, well, what's causing this fear? Why do I think that people are going to laugh at me if I dance? Why am I afraid of what they think? Why do I care? What beliefs way deep down inside of myself are driving these fears? And I kind of realized that my relationship with fear anyways, ultimately, is a mirror of who I believe I am, right? We look at fear as a culture as something shameful. Oh, I didn't do this thing because I was afraid, and now I regret it. Now I feel ashamed that I just didn't act the way I know I should have because I was afraid and I acted on that. And we put all this negativity on it, and I realized when I started stepping back and going, oh, I feel afraid. Why do I feel afraid? That it's because my fears are tied to my beliefs and who I am. I was afraid of dancing because I was ashamed of how my body works and moves. I was like, oh, I can't do things. I don't believe I can. And it was all tied to like these limiting beliefs. And so that concept of fear, really the way that I related to fear is the way I related to myself. And I didn't like that. I would much rather relate to myself in a positive way. So that was one of the other paradigm shifts that I had. So paradigm shift number one was just playing with the idea of what if fear is not actually a bad thing? What if we could put a positive spin on it? Idea number two, the realization number two is, holy cow, I treat my fear and I look at my fear the same way that I treat myself and I look at myself. Idea number two or three is, what if fear could be a potent tool? As a musician, as someone who's sung in front of crowds of 2,000 and more, everyone gets the jitters before you go out. And an old karate instructor of mine way back when would say, yes, you have butterflies in your stomach, but just make those butterflies fly in formation. And I'm like, I'm terrified, I can't do that. But it's kind of like a superpower. That energy that you get when you have fear, it can kind of supercharge you. And I'm going to go somewhere with this. And where I'm going, sorry, I wrote down my notes right down here so like I don't forget, because I can be scatterbrained sometimes. What if, and this is where my mind really started to just, what if fear is actually the source of greatness? Like, what if that emotion, that energy that we have when we're absolutely terrified is what actually propels us to do cool stuff and amazing things? What really sunk that in for me was thinking about the people in the Underground Railroad, harboring fugitive slaves. That was terrifying as all get out. And we like to attribute it to love. Oh, love caused them to do that. You can be the most loving person in the world and still be terrified to do something because it could destroy you and your family's life. I'm proposing that maybe fear is love's supercharger. Like the people who harbored fugitives and slaves, the people in Nazi-occupied Europe who protected Jews at complete risk to their lives, their families' lives, even extended families and things, because of the retaliation and the retribution is not a small thing. What drove them to do that wasn't just love. That energy that gave them the guts to do it was fear. And so I cannot believe that fear is a negative thing anymore. In fact, I really think that fear and love, I think we've given it a bad name. We've given it a bad reputation. We can't change the name because it's kind of been there for centuries, if not millennia. But what if we started playing with the idea that fear is actually a supercharger? I'm going to relate it back to dance, because again, that's my thing right now. I'm terrified every time I go out on the dance floor. At least I experience fear. But that fear is the same feeling that I have when I watched before Dancing with the Stars. And I'd have that, oh, I wish I could do that. I could see myself doing that. And simultaneously, fear would kick in. And because I put a negative light on it, and instead of my rose-colored glasses, I had dreary coke-colored glasses, and I said, oh, fear's a bad thing, I'd put it to the side and I'd kill it. So I just want to give you that idea that what if fear is really just love? Right? Crazy, right? But think about all the things that you didn't do because you were afraid to do them. Can you think of anything, any situation where, like you never have regrets about stuff that you did? I mean, you might have some regrets. Oh, I wish I didn't do that. That was stupid. But you learned from it. But if you let fear keep you from doing a thing, literally the only thing you will have is regret. They've interviewed people on their deathbeds, and I wish I had the actual numbers for this and like the thing, but I don't have it. Something like 80 to 90% of people on their deathbeds, their biggest regret is not having done stuff. And we blame that on fear. We say, oh, fear's bad. See, fear kept me from doing all this stuff in my life. But fear's the same thing that drives me as a musician to go out and sing in front of 2,000 people. It's the same thing that would cause most people, and me when I was 18, to go dive under a table and assume the fetal position if someone said you're going to sing in front of an individual. Fear's the same thing that causes people to run from predator cats in the wild versus run towards them and deal with them. Fear's the same thing that kept hundreds of thousands of people, both in this nation and over in Europe, during this, during those periods that I mentioned, the Underground Railroad during World War II. Fear is the exact same thing that kept thousands and thousands of people from helping slaves or Jews or persecuted individuals. It's the same thing that drives other individuals to help them. I'm a nerd. Doctor Who is one of the greatest descriptions. If you watch it for any period of time, almost every episode highlights the majority of the people will latch onto fear and not do it. The other people stand above the crowd. They excel. They do things that no one thought was possible, and we love them for it. It gives us like that prickly hairs on the back of our necks and our arm sensation, because we feel like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. You know why we feel that way? Because it proves to us, it shows us that we can do the same thing. That's why you feel like that when you watch a movie, when you watch the old black and white Sergeant York and you see all the things he does and your hair stands on end. Your hair stands on end because you have that potential. Fear isn't holding you back. It's your attitude towards fear. It's the way you're looking at it. So next time you feel afraid, I want to offer this idea to you. I want to challenge you. Step back and ask, why do I feel afraid? What do I believe about myself or about my situation that makes me feel terrified? What do, and then is that true? Is that actually true? Or do I want it to be true? Because guess what? That fear, right in that moment, is exactly what's going to let you break through the barriers that you've allowed to be in your life. And it's going to let you go forward and burst through them and be amazing. I had one other idea, and then I'm going to get off because I have dancing stuff this afternoon, and I've got to do laundry and dishes and stuff. But like when you look at a situation, we've always attributed fear to, you look at something, this is what I could lose. This is the risk, this is the cost. And then you also simultaneously hear a voice in those people that we attribute greatness to that says, but it's worth it. And we always say that love is that whispering, but it's worth it. I want to suggest that the emotion and the energy that we call fear simultaneously shows us this is what you could lose, and at the exact same time, that same emotion, that same energy, this thing that we've always said is a negative thing, is actually what's whispering, it's worth it. And then, it's a part of love that we've ostracized. We're afraid of our own potential. We're afraid of what people would think of us if we actually acted above the norm. And so we said, that's fear, that's negative, that's bad. What if that thing we call fear is actually what supercharges the love that's already in us? Those positive urges that you have, those things you want to do for good for others. What if fear is actually what sparks the flame, right? Like love is like an explosive gas, and you've kind of got a leak all the time, right? And fear is what takes a torch to it and just poof. That was a stupid illustration, but whatever. I'm on a riff. I do stupid things and say stupid things when I do it. I was about to go into a nerd reference about Star Wars and fear being actually what drove Luke Skywalker to not fight Darth Vader. Like, yes, it was love, but that was terrifying AF, right? This is like the Dark Lord of the Sith, and I've just started doing Force stuff, 6 months ago with Yoda? It hasn't been that long. I'm just going to shut off my lightsaber and say, I won't fight you. Like, terrifying. That wasn't love that drove him. That was like the energy that gave him the power to do that was actually fear, is what I'm proposing. So anyways, thanks for watching my random rant. I went a little bit longer than I meant to. I see lots and lots of little green bars down there. I appreciate it. I'll look at it when I put my contacts and my glasses on and can actually see it. Now for the fun part, I try and figure out how to end this call. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful Saturday or whatever day of the week this happens to be if you're watching afterwards. And here we go to find the end button. Let's see how many times it takes me to do this.